All right, next up we have K Johnston, New York Times bestselling author of Ahsoka, Queen's Shadow, Queen's Peril, and soon to be out Queen's Hope. Hi, how you doing today?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Good. So I think everybody is super excited about Queen's Hope, the
Me too.
next,
It's
yeah.
like it's like just off camera because that's what I'm working on right now. So it's like literally underneath my hand right now. Because that's what I'm working on right now.
Nice. Is that like editing that
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
doing? Nice. So let's talk about the title a little bit, Queen's Hope. It's not like this is set during the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Not exactly a hopeful time.
Yeah.
Is
Um the Queen's series was always sort of a conversation of titles. Originally, I wanted to call it The Queen's Hands when we thought it was going to be like a single book. And Jen was like, no, let's call it something else. So Queen's Shadow became the obvious choice for book one. And then in the second book, I wanted to call it Queen's Gambit. And the argument for marketing was that nobody would know what a gambit was. And I was like, fine, we'll call it Queen's Peril. And then I was like, maybe I'll be able to talk them into Queen's Gambit for the third one. And then Queen's Gambit came on Netflix. So that was the end of that. And I was like, oh, I have to come up with another title for this book.
mind.
So I hit on Queen's Hope immediately. That's to me what Padme has always been about. She is the kind of person who, she fails, she makes mistakes, she has tremendous successes, and no matter how the day ends, she gets up the next day and keeps going. And she also inspires that in a lot of the people around her. So Queen's Hope is herself, like the hope that she has, but it's also in this case the other characters quite a bit. So we've always known what was going to happen to Padme from the first time we saw her, and to keep myself from being really sad the whole way through this book, I just sort of transferred her optimism and her work ethic and her drive into other characters. Eventually, of course, that will come full circle with Leia and Luke. But in the meantime, there are other people who can carry that hope forward, and that to me was really important.
Yeah, yeah, that's I think that's like one of her most fundamental traits is hope. So yeah,
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. So other than the title, what can you tell us about this book? So we know it's set during the Clone Wars. Can you tell
it
us
is.
roughly like beginning, middle, end?
Super beginning
Okay.
of the Clone Wars. I am still a YA author, so they dragged me over the line in this one. Padme's 24 and Anakin's 19, but I am still in my heart a YA author, so I wanted them to be as young as possible. And in this case, unfortunately for Padme, she only really has two pieces of her naive soul left. The one that believes the Republic is going to be okay, and the one that believes Anakin is going to be okay. And so this is the book that's sort of the exploration of that. And then, of course, the other characters that come into the story or have been in the story and we're bringing back, and all that kind of stuff. So it is a very early Clone Wars story. Because I'm me, I tried to include everybody they would possibly let me. We'll see who I have to cut.
Yeah.
But the idea was always to make this sort of everybody's at war and only one person is particularly good at it. That person is Anakin Skywalker, and that's not a good thing.
No. Yeah. But it sounds like one character who's definitely going to be in it is Sabe. She's going to
Yes.
be, yes, she's going to be once again doubling for Padme. Do you think, I mean, obviously, this, who knows, things might still get cut, but are we going to see more of the like Queen's Peril and Queen Shadow type characters of the more handmaidens and Tonra and the Panakas?
I mean, that's always the goal. I love writing Naboo. So Sashay, of course, has always been one of the major characters in my heart. So she does have a pretty significant plot line. The other thing that setting it really, really close to Attack of the Clones gives me is the other advantage, rather, is that they have to replace Corday and Verse, which is super sad. So we get some new handmaidens, but we also get Dorme as the like sole survivor type, and the others sort of dealing with their grief for Corday and Verse, which we don't see. So at first I wasn't sure if they were going to be mentioned in the book at all. And as I was writing, I found that they came up very frequently, just as people were thinking about them. And that made me happy, because one of the things I did not enjoy about Queen's Shadow was writing Versailles and Corday and knowing what was going to happen to them
Rest in
later.
peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. So getting to sort of write a little bit of their memorial, it's been nice for me, but I hope readers will also enjoy kind of a little bit of an ending to that story, because we don't, like Versailles, we don't get to see it all, and Corday we know goes off in the way she would have chosen, but I like to imagine that there was a little bit of fallout, so we do get to write a bit of that.
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good to stop and pause, I think, because like even in Queen's Peril, there wasn't really a lot of time for like processing what had happened
No,
to, any of them, kind of thing.
no,
That they all
no,
lived, but
we're all
like,
busy. Yeah,
yeah, yep.
yeah.
So
This is the book where they think about stuff.
processing your trauma, yay! So one of the characters that you tweeted about is a new clone character. I remember you were tweeting about like, hey, is this a name that's already taken? I don't know. It's somebody else's problem. Um, so maybe is he part of the secret mission that Padme's on, or?
I think there's actually going to be 2 new clones now. They asked me to add something, and in true K Johnston fashion, I was like, okay, I'm going to do the opposite that you asked for, but I will definitely add something. So I think there's going to be 2 new clones, and they're going to serve different narrative purposes. I haven't really got into the second one yet, but I'm super excited to. And the first one I actually enjoyed a lot more than I thought I was going to. I'd never written really one of the clones before for an extended period of time, because I wasn't allowed to. Because I wasn't allowed to. So it's been fun to kind of get it. And again, this is very early. So the clones are just sort of starting to figure out who they are and what they stand for. And it was important to me to establish that they've been naming themselves since the very beginning. So getting to work with a clone who is able to introduce themselves to Padme is always kind of a bonus.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, within the naming yourself thing, that kind of takes me into our next question, because that whole aspect, not really not in this scenario, but in general, naming yourself is a very queer thing. Are we possibly going to see more queer characters? Obviously, Sabe is in it, and you've written her before as being somewhere on the bi-pan spectrum. And Sache and Yane, maybe they'll be in it. Or yeah, are we going to see more queer content?
We are. I always have plans, and I have two characters that I think are going to be interesting. We're still working on them. Story Group has been fantastic in terms of helping me develop characters, and also of being quite understanding of that I can't just switch a character over. Like if a character is one expression of queer, like I can't just flip a switch and make them another expression of queer. You have to go through and do a lot of rebuilding. So they've been really excellent in giving me the support to do that. And I'm kind of excited because it's not just going to be like the queer character in this book. There's going to be more than one. And
that's kind of all
that's,
of your books are just sort of like just gonna sprinkle a little bit over here, a little bit over there.
This one might be this one, I don't know if it's my most ambitious in terms of representation, but in terms of personal craft growth, this one is probably my most ambitious. If I can pull it off, I'm going to be really happy. So I'm still in revisions, which is why I'm talking a little bit cagely about it. But and again, like Story Group has just been amazing the whole way through, right from the Black Sun agent in Ahsoka. Which I've talked about a little bit. I remember getting a message from the copy editor, and the copy editor was just like, look, I know I've flagged so many things in the Black Sun chapter. It's not because we need to change them. I know what you're trying to do. I just want to make sure we're being consistent with regard to the agent's pronouns. And so that's the kind of thing that the Story Group and the editorial team has always done. And I'm super excited to sort of move forward with these new people and develop the ones we already have.
That's so good to hear. I mean, like the Star Wars fandom in general can be a little bit yikes sometimes on stuff like this. There was, kind of a rather public blow up within the fandom pretty recently about trans issues especially, and it's it's so good to hear that like within the story group at Lucasfilm, like it's nothing but support. That's
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm super excited that you're even more excited about this than the other books because I adored In Queen's Peril, like the entire, like the whole instance of like the concert to like until the invasion actually starts is just such good gay disaster
Yep,
teenager, like,
yep, yep.
oh,
There's a lot of
stop
gay panic
it.
in that book.
So good. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I've said it before, but like Queen's Peril, I, 13, 14 were not like good years for me, but like that book makes me look back on being that age with fondness because it's just everything that's amazing about being a like young teenage girl and just the utter chaos that
yeah,
is.
yep, yep, yeah. The absolute ridiculousness of it. It's wonderful, and I don't miss it either. But
Yeah, like
it is pretty cool.
it's like you don't miss it, but you kind of like look back on it like in a different light of like, oh yeah, there were some good things. It wasn't all just awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, was there anything else that you can tell us about Queen's Hope?
It starts with a dress.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds about right.
and I've had that in my head forever, so I knew exactly how it started with the dress. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be
Well,
good.
you've been ending the other books about, making us sad about white dresses and
Oh, it's still gonna make you sad. Don't worry. I'm not talking about the prologue and the epilogue. Those are two different things that we're still hammering out. But the actual
yeah.
chapter 1 starts with the dress.
Okay.
The prologue and the epilogue are still like emotionally crushing.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect nothing else other than something that's just gut-wrenching and
Don't
awful.
worry. Don't
And
worry. I have
yeah,
plans.
I'm sure you'll deliver. Yeah. Um, so what has been different about writing Queen's Hope during a pandemic as opposed to the other 3 Star Wars books that you've written? Like, has your process changed at all?
I think the biggest difference for Queen's Hope and Etherbound, which I also wrote in a pandemic,
Yes. That's coming out. When's that coming out?
May 25th.
May 25th.
Yeah. And I think the biggest difference for those is that I couldn't leave my house. I don't write books at my house. I do all my revisions, I do all my administration, I do all of the like interviews and stuff. I do all of that at my desk, but I write somewhere else. And so it was really hard to write those books at home. Etherbound, I was lucky. It was during a point in the summer when we could book Airbnbs. So I literally booked an Airbnb in town. Like I can see it from my house. And just never learned the Wi-Fi password at the place where I was staying. So that's how I got through Etherbound over the course of 2 weekends. And then for Queen's Hope, I literally had to like set a timer. Like my phone was on a timer for every 2 hours, and every time it went off, I had to get up and write 2,000 words. And if I finished in like the amount of time I got to rest between chapters was the amount of time I had left. So it was not fun, but it did get finished.
Yeah, you're
And
really a writing machine about that. I
yeah,
think
when
that's
I have to, I can get it done. And I think the way I got through that was knowing that Jen has my back, my editor. I talk about the story group a lot, and that usually includes Jen, but Jen specifically is really good to bounce ideas off of. She's wonderful to work with. She's incredibly like flexible and sympathetic, considering she works for a gigantic organization. And she is very understanding of the fact, maybe because we've done 3 books together already and this is our 4th one, but there's definitely notes that I put in the first draft of this book that were like, I'm going to fill this out, it will make sense later. I just have to write the end. I had to write the end of Queen's Hope for some reason before I could write the beginning. And so the beginning is like not great, and in some cases not existent. But
I mean,
I've always
that's Star Wars tradition of we'll fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post. This isn't post, this is revision. So I'm super excited to revise it because I've known since very, very early on in the writing process that that I was going to need the ending first, and that and I just didn't have the brain space, I guess, for lack of a better word. Usually I go away and I go to the cottage and there's no distractions and all that kind of stuff. And this time it had to be here, and it was not fun, but I got a new desk chair, and it's a nice desk chair, so I didn't die. Yeah. Sorry, we're having allergy season. It started yesterday because we had a sunny day and all the trees were like, spring is here. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm dying.
Yeah, that's been here too, unfortunately. And it's super fun with COVID because it's like, do I have a sore throat
Yeah,
because I have
exactly.
COVID and I'm gonna
Is it
die, or is
allergies
it
or am I
because
dying?
allergies? Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Mm-hmm. So other than, writing in absolutely crazy like marathon time limits, what else have you been doing during the pandemic? Any hobbies, and have those hobbies left any marks on this book?
Well, I took up embroidery, but that might have been because of Queen's Peril.
Yeah, I was gonna say we touched on that one a little bit.
Talked
Yeah.
about that one last time. I've always really liked cross stitching, but now that I can't leave the house, it's been kind of nice to have something to do while I'm watching television. Because I think if I had like anybody else in the house, it would be a little bit different because I could talk to them.
Yeah.
But I just got to a point over the winter or I guess it was before winter, where I felt like I was just like the only person that was talking to me was on the television and I wasn't doing anything. So I started cross stitching, and I like it because you get to stab things a bunch of times and then you have art.
Yeah.
I still do cross stitch. I haven't moved up to embroidery yet, but I'm really enjoying it. The other thing I've got into is more serious baking and cooking. I always thought that I was like just not good at it, but it turns out it's hard when you're only home 1 week out of the month. So I've gotten better at meal planning, which I hate because it just offends me on every level that I have to do this. Like it just bothers me so much. And baking, which I actually enjoy. So like making dough and all of the different ratios of stuff. Like if you put in this much flour, you get biscuits. And if you put in this much flour and some yeast, you get bread. And like that's the only difference. So I've been enjoying that kind of mixing white stuff together, as I call it, on Instagram.
So rather than, secret messages being hidden in a tapestry, this time it'll be within like the wrapping of like challah bread or something like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Looking forward to that. So one last Queen's Hope question. Where can people pre-order it? Do you have book plates if you order it from a certain place, right?
We have not got that far ahead yet.
Okay.
So Etherbound, if you pre-order it from Old Firehouse Books, you will get a personalized signed copy. Queen's Hope, you'll just have to stay tuned. They're still putting that kind of stuff together. I did notice that Kevin Scott seems to be signing a lot of tip-in sheets. So when we find out what Claudia and Justina are doing for their next round of books, maybe that will give us some idea of what Queen's Hope is going to look like. But in the meantime, I honestly don't know.
Fair enough.
Don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm not even going to bother asking if there's going to be a book tour or whatever. I know that's just who knows. Yeah.
Who knows?
So for readers who have really loved all of your Star Wars books, which of your original fiction books would you recommend them to dive into if they wanted to pick that up?
I think if Ahsoka is your favorite, definitely The Story of Owen and Prairie Fire, which are 2 books about people trying to decide what they're going to do with the fight going forward, and the idea of propaganda and storytelling and all that kind of stuff. Those are definitely the 2 that I think are the closest to Ahsoka. If you are into the more, like, for lack of a better term, abrasive feminism of the Padme books, The Afterword is definitely where a lot of my outsourced feelings went. Not necessarily because like I wasn't allowed to put them into the Queen's books, but because there just wasn't any room for them. So a lot of that is in The Afterword, and a lot of it is in Etherbound, which, as we've said like 4 times now, comes out on May 25th. So if you like that, if you like Sashay and Yane and Queer Panic, then I recommend That Inevitable Victorian Thing.
Yeah, Yep, that kind of sounds about from your I've read that inevitable Victoria thing and the afterward, and yeah, those are
Yep.
that lines up with what I would say about yeah. Angry women, the afterword, super queer stuff. I mean, not the afterword isn't also super queer, but yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
So now that your Padme trilogy is complete, is there another Star Wars character that you would be interested in writing about?
Yeah. I say that like it's a question. And the reason I say as a question is because 3 books in on the same character, it's starting to feel like I still love it. I love every part of it,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. But I really love being part of that group think tank, which we got in a big way in Ahsoka. We had it in a big way in Queen's Shadow. And we have it in separate ways with Queen's Peril and Queen's Hope. But in a lot of ways, people are like, oh, they're E.K. Johnston Padme books, right?
Yeah.
Like I would like to be involved in something that's a little bit more teeny again.
Yeah.
Not just from the character point of, or not just from the writing point of view, but from the character point of view. I always feel like Star Wars books, to me, are more interesting when they're about groups and not about people. And sometimes the titles can be a little bit misleading. Like Solo, for example, wasn't really about Han. It was about like literally everyone else.
Yeah.
Including Han, but like they just called it that so that
Mostly
we would,
Enfys
yeah.
Nest. That's really who
Mostly
I care
Enfys,
about in that movie.
let's be real.
Yeah.
A little bit Kira and some Crown Lords, but like
Yeah.
I really kind of want to have that team feeling, and I think especially in a YA book, there's nothing better than like a crew of angry teenagers
Yes.
going after stuff. So I don't know what that crew of angry teenagers will be, but I'm excited if there's another opportunity to go back into Star Wars.
Yeah. I don't know if there's ever going to be any openings on the writing team for High Republic, and I don't know how angry a bunch of teenagers would be, but we can dream. So along lines with Jedi, actually, if you could pick any Jedi to be your master or your Padawan, who would it be?
I feel like I've just forgotten the name of every single Jedi in the High
Course.
Republic. And I don't really know them well enough yet to know like how much I trust them.
But it doesn't have to be High Republic.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
This is why I'm ruling out the High Republic. Like obviously it would be scary, but I'm ruling out the High Republic just because I don't know them well enough yet.
Yeah.
I think probably Qui-Gon.
As your master or as your Padawan?
Yeah, as my master.
Yeah.
I definitely like the when they paired up, the reason they gave for pairing up Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon in Master and Apprentice was like, yep, definitely be assigned to Qui-Gon. I am the rule follower.
Yeah.
But I think we'd be a good pair.
Yeah.
I don't know who I would have as a Padawan. They're all disasters.
Yes, and that's the best part.
Yeah, maybe Finn. Finn seems like a good kid.
Yeah. Aw. Maybe one day we'll get that story of Finn learning to be a Jedi.
Yep.
So, who knows about book tour for Queen's Hope, but just in general, be that, next celebration or whatever, when you can do publicity events again in person, what are you most looking forward to in interacting with fans?
I miss people so much. It's funny because I'm like super introverted, so like I will also after 5 minutes be like, okay, that's good, I'm done, back to the hotel. But I just miss people, and like I miss like the feeling of being at a convention when everybody is like there for the same reason. Celebration and Dragon Con are two of my favorites for that because they are so like hyper concentrated. And I just miss talking to people in short doses and then escaping immediately to someplace where I can be alone. I mean, and also the food. I also miss the food.
Yes. Well, where can people find you online if they want to follow what you're up to?
You can find me on Twitter at EK_Johnston. You can also find me on Instagram at EK_Johnston. That's where I do most of my books, promo, politics, baking, and live tweeting of random television and video games. Tumblr, which is just EK Johnston, no underscores, is where I repost pictures of things that made me laugh.
Yep.
And sometimes I will admit that I intentionally troll like Handmaiden fans to be like, someone just posted something that was like, oh, I have so many Save and Padme feelings after reading Queen's Peril. And so I just reblogged it with like, wait until you read Queen's Hope. And then hit reblog and just like, just wait.
just wait for their heads to explode. Yep.
Oh my God, EK Johnston has a Tumblr? Yes,
Yeah.
I do. I spend a lot of time on.
Well, I think that's like, it's hard with like parasocial relationships kind of thing with social media, but also it's really fun to be able to like
Yeah. And
interact
I think one of the reasons I like Tumblr so much is that it is so impersonal.
Yeah.
Like, it's just my fandom blog, basically, with occasional trolling posts, and it's always in a good way. And it's like,
nice trolling, not yeah.
And it's the place where I have fun, and I really feel like that's something I enjoy a lot about Tumblr as a website, is that it seems to be, I know there is like serious and dark sides of Tumblr, but for me at any rate, Tumblr's where I have fun. So I'm always happy to see stuff there.
Yeah, it's definitely the best place for like, here is a wall of all like just fandom things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. So we are all super excited for Queen's Hope, and that's coming out November 2nd.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and everybody look for Queen's Hope in stores November 2nd, and please donate to UNICEF as part of Rebelthon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.